Hello YouTube! This is my book reading wrap up for June, and I didn't read that many books this month. I had a really busy month, I had a lot of stuff going on, so I actually only read 4 books, 3 of which were audiobooks, which means that most of my reading happened on my commute to and from work. That's okay, because I still read 4 books. I also had a bit of a reading slump, and so I started a lot of books this month, but I didn't get further than about 50 pages on a lot of them, so I'm hoping to pick up a lot of those in July, and maybe just switch gears and read something totally different. We'll see. Anyway, I want to read a lot more in July, but here is what I read in June. So the first book I read was I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This book was luckily an Audible Daily Deal recently, so I didn't have to pay very much for it, and a book that I just heard so many great things about but hadn't actually read yet. It was also one of the picks for the summer reading list for the restricted section, my book club. I really liked this book. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I kind of thought that it was going to be just sort of like a, I don't know, just like your average contemporary, but it was really unique. It had a lot of really cool things going for it. I really liked that it was told in different points in time. So it switches back and forth between the brother's point of view and the sister's point of view. The brother's point of view takes place 2 years earlier than the sister's point of view. So often when you switch between the stories, you find out things that you had no idea about, but then it just, I don't know, it just has this beautiful way of interweaving when you find out information that works in this way that you don't always believe is gonna work, but totally does. It was just heartfelt and poignant and sad and happy, and I just really liked it. Next, I read The Martian by Andy Andy Weir, I don't know how to say his name, but I was obsessed with this book. In fact, this book has put me on an outer space / getting left behind on a planet kick. That doesn't seem like something that you'd be able to find a lot of content for, but I've actually been like going nuts finding more stuff kind of like The Martian, and it's been really fun. I'll get to that with my TBR. But this is a book about a guy, Mark Watney, who is on this mission to Mars, and his crew leaves him behind. They think that he's died, but he hasn't, and it's his survival story. And so I really appreciated listening to this as an audiobook, because a lot of the book is his audio logs that he's just recording, sort of, you know, his personal audio journal of his experience there, and it was just great. The voice actor who narrates it is wonderful. This book, you would think that it would be sort of like sad and depressing and intense, but more often than not it was hilarious, which I really appreciated. Mark Watney is just this great character who really takes all of this in stride really well. I just loved it so much, and I actually didn't know when I bought the audiobook that it was being made into a movie, but the movie comes out in October, and now I am just so excited for that. Then I read An Unwelcome Quest by Scott Meyer. This is the 3rd book in the Magic 2.0 series. I've talked about the first 2 books in previous wrap-ups because I read the whole series this year. I really enjoyed the first 2. They're just really weird, wacky, sort of sci-fi fantasy books about these people who find this document, this file, that basically proves that all of existence is a simulation, and they figure out how to manipulate it, and they're all living back in time as wizards. And so this was the 3rd book in the series. I didn't love this one as much. I didn't think that the plot was quite as exciting as the first 2, and it was kind of like too much just, we're on a quest, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this, and it like dragged for me a little bit, but ultimately I was glad to finish off the series. I don't know if there's gonna be more. It feels like there could be more, but it was alright. I gave it like, I think a 3 out of 5 stars. Oh, I didn't actually tell you what I gave the other ones. I gave I'll Give You the Sun and The Martian both 5 out of 5 stars, but I gave An Unwelcome Quest 3 because it was okay, but not my favorite. And the last book that I read this month, I actually just sort of powered through the second half of it last night because I wanted to be able to just finish it for June and get it in this wrap-up video. And that was Magonia by Maria Devana Headley. This is actually an ARC that I was given by a friend months ago, and I never got around to reading it. I had a really interesting experience with this book because the first half of it I really loved. The first half is about this girl who has this lung / breathing issue, and they don't really know what it is. They've actually named the disease after her because they can't figure out what's wrong. And I really like the writing style. She has this really sort of conversational, like casual writing style. She utilizes lack of punctuation and size of text a lot, which I really like because that's something that I tend to play around with a little bit in my own writing, and so I just really enjoyed that. Halfway through the book, like this big thing happens, and suddenly the book is about bird people. And it was just, I just had a really hard time staying engaged at that point because it starts out feeling very much just like a contemporary novel about a sick kid and her friend, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into this fantasy world. But I almost feel like there wasn't enough time in the fantasy world because you spend most of that time just getting to know like the crew and her immediate situation, but then in the last 100 pages there's this much larger plot that you get thrown into with villains and all of this other stuff, and it felt really rushed, and I had a really hard time getting through this book. And so I was a little conflicted, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I really enjoyed about half of it, and the other half was just so bizarre and out there. I had a really hard time staying engaged. So that's it for me for this month. I only read those 4 books. I didn't like that this was my lightest reading month, but it was the beginning of summer. I had some work trips and it was just a lot going on. So I plan to read more next month. Currently, I'm really struggling to figure out what to read because I'm in the middle of a bunch of books, but I don't know if I should try to pick those up again or if I should just try to read something totally different. First thing I'm going to do to get myself sort of back into reading is continue on with the Georgia Nicholson series. It's my goal to read all 10 of these this year because I think I read the first 5 or 6 when I was younger and then completely forgot about the series. So Ia and I, my roommate, have been powering through them. Also with regard to people being left on a planet genre, I'm going to read 172 Hours on the Moon because this apparently is supposed to be really great, and I'm just so interested in just survival stories on another planet. I don't know why, that's just fascinating to me. So I'm gonna be reading this, and then I also, in June, started Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I got about this far into it, and I really am enjoying it. I just wanted to finish Magonia. So those are the first 3 things that I'm really planning on reading. I also need to start reading some of the other books for my book club, the restricted section book club, and who knows what else, maybe some graphic novels. It's been a while. So that's it for my reading wrap up. I'd love to know what you're reading, if you've read any of the books that I talked about in today's video, all the usual conversational things I love to hear about in the comments, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!